This is a Hot Pie Media original. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp assesses your needs and matches you with your own licensed professional therapist, and you can start communicating with them in under 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not a self-help line. It's professional therapy done securely online. With a broad range of expertise, which might not be available in local markets, the services are available for clients worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and even send messages to your therapist. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses, and you can schedule weekly online video or phone sessions, so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room again. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches so that they make it easy and free to change therapists if needed. It's more affordable than traditional therapy, and financial aid is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit their website and read their testimonials. And visit betterhelp.com/SSS. That's betterhelp.com/SSS, the code for Stop Self-Sabotage, and join the over 1 million people who've taken charge of their mental health. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional therapists in all 50 states. So don't forget, the special offer for Stop Self-Sabotage listeners is to get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/SSS.
If you like Stop Self-Sabotage, check out another Hot Pie Media original, The Blueprint, brought to you by the Festive Kitchen, now offering comfort food hugs. Find them at www.festivekitchen.com. Welcome. We are on with our friend and second time on the show because the ratings for you were so high that people wanted you back. So, yay. So, Renie, tell us about you, my dear. Here's Renie Cavalleri, and we're going to be talking about head trash, right?
Yes, we are. And thank you. And thank you to all your listeners who invited me back through their enthusiasm. That makes me feel good on a Monday morning.
It should. Yay. Yay.
So, I'm a working class kid from Philly, and I grew up in corporate America. My first pass at a career was in corporate America. 26 years ago, I started a company called Powered by Aspire, and we work with companies all over the world in helping them be better at what they do. And through that work, I became truly enamored with what allowed certain people to really aspire, like they could really tap into their potential, where other people seem to just kind of stay in mediocrity, or, they'd have a little good ride, but they couldn't sustain high performance. And that's really what the finding of the book was, is, as you know, mindset is everything.
Everything. Absolutely. So tell us about the book. It's been out for how long now? Head Trash, by the way. Run out and buy it, everybody. Head Trash.
Thanks, Pat. Head Trash, the leading killer of human potential. It's been out. It came out February 14th. And it, I humbly say it hit number one. We've been able to, get quite a bit of recognition. And I think it's really mostly about that everyone right now can relate to these feelings of like overwhelmment. We've been running off of energy from last year with COVID in our businesses. It was, we're running out, the steam isn't there, and to keep pushing us. I feel like we had a ton of adrenaline in 2020. So that's what got us through. But adrenaline isn't a sustainable energy, as you know. And certainly better than me. And when you start to really understand that when you run out of that kind of connected energy that allows you to dig in and sustain performance, so you end up having what we call head trash. And head trash are those little nasty people in your brain that start saying, this is too much. I can't do it. There's too many expectations, and there was so much going on last year, Pat. If you think about, it wasn't just COVID. There was an election, there was a world event. And at some point, the human brain just needs to, take a break.
Yeah. Well, I totally understand. Not only just long view for my life, but I was racing here in an Uber 45 minutes, late, the Uber picking me up, and I'm just going, breathe. And I mean, that's what happens to us, I mean, the stress, and I know that affects our emotional brain. And you have fabulous information on that. Tell me about the emotional brain. Help mine right now. I appreciate it.
Yes. Well, we all have those feelings too, or it can be anything that can trigger us. But one of our key findings that we address in Head Trash is that you have this emotional brain, and it has two sides. And there's the connected side of the emotional brain, which is where you were telling yourself to breathe and to try and get to that connected side. That was what was happening. Because when things go wrong, and they can be small things all the way to significant things, or fear or worry, any of those kind of negative emotions, we're living in the disconnected side of our emotional brain. And it feels, the biggest thing that we found is it's these feelings of not being in control. And, there's nothing that people hate more than not being in control. I always laugh when people say, well, this person's a control freak. And I go, everyone's a control freak.
Exactly. And, I also, interesting you say that, because I was talking about that the other day with my daughter. And I was saying, anybody who does anything correctly is a control freak, and you don't want a non-control freak around. I mean, they're not doing a thing.
Right. Yes. And so it's when we feel out of control, that little bit of chaos, all the way to as you were sitting in that Uber, you knew there was nothing you could do. You had organized it, you had taken care of it, but you find yourself in this really kind of low grade stress situation, and the little people in your brain start talking. And so the book Head Trash is about how do you get yourself either in the moment over to the connected side of your emotional brain, or live more of your life in the connected side, because that's where joy is. And I always say, success equals joy. The more joy you have, right, the more successful you are. And you get to define what joy is. But it's definitely not wired out and stressed out. It's not those negative emotions.
Well, you have this wonderful sign behind your head that says gratitude. And I was reading something the other day I loved. It said, if you don't feel joy, go to gratitude and start listing what you're grateful for, and that will bring you to your joy. What do you think about that comment?
Well, actually, I have a Head Trash journal coming out. It just was released, and it's all about joy and putting yourself in gratitude each morning. Mm-hmm. And I totally believe this to be true. I know when I'm feeling stressed out, I had some big things happening last week, and they weren't things I was anticipating. Someone resigned, and I was what happened here? And, you can really dig yourself into the disconnected side where there is no joy. Right. So questions like, why is this happening? What happened here? This is wrong. Those are questions that don't give you joy. They don't bring you to a really more empowered state of mind.
Exactly.
And so when I started thinking about, I started to say, well, who do I want to be right now? And how can I be supported in this transition? Mm. And I wonder what's opening up since this door is closing. That really allowed me to get out of my head and get some sleep, because I was just feeling overwhelmed and disappointed and angry and all these so I was stuck in that.
The disconnected brain,
that disconnected side of our emotional brain. And so when we build muscle, like mental muscle, to say, okay, this isn't serving me. Who can I connect with that can help me? Because environment changes, who we hang with. I wasn't calling people who would get mad. I was speaking to people who were helping, coaching me to, okay, this is where I want to be.
Right.
But also that I have these questions that I go to when I'm disappointed or angry or whatever that negative is. And that is where we have to build muscle to be able to manage our head trash and ultimately dump it.
I love dumping it. I think that's it's so graphic. Take this head trash, put it in the wastebasket, and dump it. Okay. Now, in your book, you talk about the 4 big lies. Okay. So Talk to me.
All right.
Tell me.
Well,
there are these.
There's 4 big lies. And what we were able to do over literally 20 plus years, tens of thousands of people to understand, like, when fear kicked in, because Aspire, really, we're a performance improvement company, which means we're going to change your behavior so you can improve differently. Well, talk about, change means you're not feeling like you're in control. Now, of course, that's, how you look at it. You can either drive change where you are in control or have change happen to you. But what we were able to really identify was that, yes, are there feelings of abandonment? Like, we have these different things, these different imprints that really live in that emotional brain that can drive us in positive and not so positive directions. But what we were able to identify were these 4, they're like really big lies. They limit your thinking. And we each have one. We don't have 2. We don't have 3. We don't have 4. We have one. And one is in there waiting to be triggered. And when it's triggered, that's when we're usually at our worst. That's when we have to get into the cleanup mode with our partners, our husband, whatever it is.
Get out the sweepers. Start sweeping.
Yeah, get out the sweeper so that you can really get this big lie under control.
All right. I'm hanging here. I need to know the 4 big lies. Let's hear it.
That's right. So the first one is I must be right. And the I must be right is when they're in full swing with their big lie. So they're in that disconnected side. They feel a need to be, they're aggressively defensive, right? They're, especially when challenged, they feel like they have an absolute version of the facts and they're going to prove them to you. And their being wrong is not possible for them. And so now, remember, this is just in that disconnected side. So risks outside of what they know to be absolutely true, absolute fact from their perspective are not possible. And they can be extremely stubborn. They also don't tend to listen very well, because why listen when I already have the right answer? So, that's the I must be right.
They're expert know-it-alls, right?
They're expert know-it-alls in the disconnected side of their emotional brain. Like, I'm not an I must be right, but that's not my big lie. I got one of the other 3. But it doesn't mean, like, when I'm in the connected side of my emotional brain, I like to be right. But when I'm in the disconnected side, I'm actually the I must never lose. And these are, when you're in this I must never lose big lie, you can tend to, let's just say, forget everybody else's feelings.
Yeah.
You are so hyper focused. You're like a rhinoceros charging forward, but there's like dead bodies everywhere, right? You can be inconsiderate.
Well said.
Yeah. You won't even notice the dead bodies.
Yeah. I had a good friend like that. And, it got to the place where a lot of her friends, over a period of time, you kept giving excuses, kept rolling with it. But at some point in time, you just said, that's enough. Next time you attack me with you needing to be right, I exit stage left. And so these big lies can push people away and terminate friendships or marriages. I'm sure. I mean, we know that. Okay. So that was number 1. I got to be right. Number 2
is I must never lose. And the I must never lose is that rhinoceros. That I must never lose is the person who can get inconsiderate and insensitive because they are very ugly losers. And they just don't notice that they've hurt people, they've insulted people. To them, they look a little like they're collaborating, because when they're when they're feeling like they might lose, they start gaining other people's opinions. So, okay, what's the win look like? What's the win like? But not the healthy win. They're just in it for not losing. And when they get like that, they start to, the inconsiderate comes in, because they can say, oh, well, you have a good idea, you're in. Oh, no, you're a bad idea, you're a bad idea. I'll forget you. And they literally will write you off. So the I must never lose, they get super, super aggressive in where they're going to go. Where the I must be right, they're aggressive because they're letting you know that they're right and you're wrong. This is different because they're focused on the win, but it's not a healthy win.
So it's you hear the terminology win-win. In this lie, it would be I win, you lose. That's it. I don't care.
Yeah, it's not that I want you to lose. I just don't care. I must never lose means I am not losing. What happens to you is because I think everybody's winning if I'm winning. This is an aggressive. This isn't win-win problem solving kind of stuff. This is I must not lose.
Okay.
And if I'm losing, you might want to get the heck out of my way.
Yeah. Before you are trampled. Okay.
Right.
Number three.
Everyone must love me is number 3.
Yeah.
Everyone must love me. And when they're on the disconnected side of their emotional brain, they're fanatical. They have a fanatical need for people to like them, to love them. They have to have high levels of connection. When there is an upset, when they feel that they're disconnected, they feel completely deflated. They cannot function well. They become overly emotional in their thinking because they'll do anything to create the connection. So they can be enabling in a lot of ways because that they're super sensitive of their feelings, and they'll take emotions over logic when they're in this mindset. And so they tend to need a lot of positive feedback to reinforce that everything is okay. And they also tough love here, Pat, is just too tough for them. And so they tend to feel really this sense of disconnection breaks them down. So then they can't function.
Yeah, interesting point. So if you know that you are relating to someone who has this, I need to be loved, or I need you to love me, and any kind of really pushing on them will make them kind of collapse into an emotional, chaos. Well, not chaos, but kind of a collapse. And then you feel guilty because you've done it, or I should own this. I feel guilty because I've done it. How do you relate to them then? I mean, if you have to make a point and you're afraid it's going to hurt them so badly.
Well, it's how you do it. So, these are the people pleasers at all costs. And so they need to stay in connection with you. So the I must never lose doesn't care about connection. They care about we're getting to the goal line. And, so imagine if you have two people both in the disconnected side and you have this I must never lose. And then you have this everyone must love me. And they're both in the disconnected side. When you have those upsets, that's why you can't get through anything. It's like a repetition of you keep regurgitating because both people are on the disconnected side. So if you have that muscle, that power to get yourself over to the connected side of your emotional brain, then you can navigate with this person. And so then you can stay in the connected side. So I'm just going to use that example from last week when someone resigned 2 weeks ago. I was not in the connected side of my emotional brain. And I literally just took a step back and said, I need to kind of go through this and process this for myself. And so I did. And then when we met, this person is still in the disconnected side. They were, they're upset. They're trying to figure out what they want to do in their life and blah, blah, blah. And so for me to come at it and say, why is this? Like this was a commitment that doesn't help that situation. But when I was able to stay in connection with them, so tell me how you're doing. Tell me what you see as the next step. Then all of a sudden I could decrease their emotional stress. So remember that for us to be productive as people, we have to decrease our emotional stress so we can gain clarity. Clarity gives us the chance to take productive action. And that's really what the book is. How do you get to clarity so you can take productive action?
Yeah, well, I want to hear about that in just a second.
Yeah, because we don't want to do that.
I'm dying to hear the fourth big lie. I'm trying to figure out which one is mine.
Right. The fourth one is this: I must feel comfortable. And, I must always feel comfortable. Well, that's pretty tricky. And they're highly uncomfortable in chaos. So imagine when maybe they were furloughed and they just don't have a sense of comfort about what's happening. And we all felt like the COVID-19 situation was uncomfortable for everyone.
Yeah.
But this, sure. Some people went to their, I must be right, and this is what's wrong about this and blah, 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 where the I must be comfortable really prefers that things just not change, that control is of the highest value for them, that they really need to be able to take information in a little slower. So if I'm in my, crazy Renie mode where I'm coming at something and, I'm like, okay, we can go here, 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 here. And I'm with an I must feel comfortable, I can overwhelm them. And it's not because they don't get it or they're not smart. It's that they take things in and they don't want to make mistakes. And so because they don't feel comfortable with mistakes. Right. And so they need a little bit of time to process this. I have a daughter who's an I must feel comfortable. When I start going, oh, and you could do this and you could do this, and she's not feeling comfortable about something, I just send her into the disconnected side of her emotional brain. And it's not on purpose. That's the amazing thing about these big lies, is that when we come to understand that when I know your big lie and you know my big lie, and we either, we work together, whatever it is that we're doing, that now I can help. When I see your lie get triggered, I can support it versus triggering it more.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I have one other question. All right. 4 big lies. Could this be called 4 negative beliefs? I love the big lie because that's the belief you're telling yourself that isn't really true. It doesn't have to be true, but it's your truth until you change it. So why do we call it the big lie? Why is it a lie?
Yeah, they're like your very, very big trigger. It's kind of the trigger big boulder in your disconnected side of your emotional brain.
Gotcha.
And so, but we all have different kinds of triggers because we all have imprints, right? So call it a trigger trivializes how big this is. And then what happens is we tell it to ourselves, and that's why it becomes the lie. Right. So I'm going to, I'm not losing here. I'm not going to lose here. And I might not say it like that, but my actions, my sense of I'm inconsiderate, by accident. It's not like I'm aware of it any more than the everyone must love me is aware that they're, being overly sensitive, overly emotional. They have such a high need for connection and love. It's just, it's exasperating for people when they're in that big lie, or the I must be comfortable is so overly procrastinating because they're so uncomfortable with the change of things.
Okay. Well, I'm struggling here because what I'm visualizing is that there's one of those dials, that goes from 1 to 10, and that somebody, you said you only have one, but some people have an intensity of their one and others have a 1 on the scale and others be 10 on the scale? Is that possible?
Well, it depends what's happening. So, you can have something happen. You might have experience a car accident very differently than I did. So you might look at you had or your Uber today. Huh. You might have looked at it one way. I look at it another. If I don't get all uptight about it, right, then I'm not triggering that big lie. That big lie only comes out when you're in the disconnected side, and usually when you have high stress. So that's the boulder of it. Yeah. So it changes for us all the time. It's not ever present because if you recall last time when we spoke, we talked about what was inside that disconnected side of your emotional brain. So the imprints of your life live in your emotional brain. And so they can also trigger that big lie.
Yeah. And of course the imprints are your belief systems, your beliefs that you internalized. Psychology basically says before age 6. So many of these things would have been imprinted very early in your life. And what happens, in my experience, is that when you get into this, you start replaying those old scripts, call it. And then you could put a face on your partner that isn't really true, or whoever you're dealing with. You see them as participating in making your disconnection happen. And so then communication is not happy. Now, it's interesting because I was certainly today in this, I need to be comfortable and I'm not comfortable. I don't want to walk in late. And I had an Uber driver, God bless her, who was the most sweet and comforting person. And what happened is she brought me back down. She said, we're going to get you there. I'm on track here. We're going to make it. Because I didn't want to disappoint you and be, 10 minutes late. So it's interesting how the people you relate to when maybe you're in your lie can either exacerbate it or diminish it. And talk to me about that. Why is it important to find somebody to help you out of it?
Well, that goes back to, first, let's start with the functioning of that emotional brain, that if you want to, where you want to be is the connected side. The connected side means you decreased your emotional stress. That's what she did for you today. She spoke to you instead of saying, well, the traffic was bad. And you know what? The directions were bad. And no one, when they, the algorithm was off, or like that would have kept in.
Yeah.
That. So she was able to decrease your emotional stress and for you to gain some clarity to start to go, okay, this is going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first thing to understand. But, there's a saying, who you hang with is who you become. And so, when we have people around us, that helps us change our environment. And when I go back to gratitude, I look at, when I'm in that state, okay, what do I feel, what do I feel grateful for? Who in my life is really nourishing me and my soul?
Yes.
And how am I nourishing other people's, soul?
Okay.
So I think there's that element. But what we really look at in the book is there's a couple of things. First, it's environment. So you can change your environment, and then second is who you hang with, but also it's the questions you're asking yourself. So let's say this person wasn't really being nice to you and, wasn't being empathetic as, she should have been. You could have really just started to say, okay, so what's the worst thing that could happen here? And who do I want to be right now? And okay, what's the first thing I can do so that Renie is aware of the situation?
Yeah, well, I had that on tap, but I also was reassuring her that I was a big tipper, which was my way of saying, "I'm with you, honey. Get me there. Come on, get me there."
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, and I know that you have a test too, right? That we can take. Can you share with us, everyone listening, the link to get on your test to find out what lie is yours?
Yes. So if you go to dumpheadtrash.com, so dumpheadtrash.com, if you click on the resources page, it will come in and it'll have certain resources like aspirations and different things, but just scroll down and you'll see Discover Your Big Lie. And you just click on that and it's a free link and you can get a brief overview of your lie. And then also, of course, it goes far more extensively into the book, but you do not need to buy the book to discover your big lie.
She doesn't mean that. Buy the book.
I do. But,
I'm teasing you. I'm teasing you.
Yeah. I mean, yes, please buy the book.
Please buy the book.
But we don't have it set up where you have to buy something. But
see, I think that's so gracious too, because there are people who are listening who want to know and they want to know now. And I'm sitting here going, okay, what's my big lie? What's my big lie? And are there tells? Like when you're with somebody, is there a tell that you can tell what their big lie is? Okay, so Renie, be my analyst now. What do you think my big lie is?
I am not. So there's a couple rules about the big lie. So I will write down the big lie, your big lie, and then I will when you tell me, I will show you what my paper says.
Okay, cool.
Okay. There's a couple things that we all want to respect about the big lie. One is that it's not aspirational. Like I had someone say, I think I'd like to be an I must never lose.
No.
You want to decrease your trigger on that big lie.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
You never want to tell someone what their big lie is.
No.
It is really because it feels bad, right? Like we're playful here, but if you tell someone, and you also don't want to say, my husband Armand, he is I must always be comfortable. He is comfortable. He would prefer to be he thinks there's something to the I must always never lose. It's pretty comical. He did the test and he was so uncomfortable with the answer, which was I must always be comfortable. It was like he explained it away to me.
Yeah.
So I don't say when he's, triggered on his big lie, honey, you're just in your I must be comfortable, because it will anchor someone in.
Of course. No, don't diagnose them. Yeah, I get it.
Don't diagnose. And then don't throw it at them.
Yeah.
It's like not a good thing.
This is for us. This is for the people who can learn about themselves. As you know, this is a show on stopping self-sabotage, which means there is a self involved and there is a sabotage involved. And so if you know your big lie, you then can ... maybe do something about it to help you decrease your disconnect. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. And that goes back to asking yourself questions and also doing proactive things. Like, for me this morning, I make sure I get into my connected side of my emotional brain. I was up nice and early so that I wouldn't be rushed. I like to meditate. It decreases my emotional stress, puts me into gratitude. Then I did my yoga this morning. Sometimes I go for, a power walk or a hike or whatever it is that allows me to start my day on the connected side. If I just get out of bed and start reading my email, it will throw me into the disconnected side.
Yeah.
I read the newspaper, it'll throw me into the disconnected side. So I have to do that as I get, as I have built my strength on my connected side.
Okay, let me go back because I'm very interested in trying to figure this one out. Okay, so we got 4 big lies. We've got I have to be right. I can't lose. Be comfortable. And what's the 4th? I just forgot. Sorry.
Everyone must love me.
Everyone must love me.
You clearly did not connect to everyone must love me.
I'm struggling. I'm not sure.
So they're the 4 big lies. And by the way, they don't, if we're in the disconnected side and we're really stuck, that's when your big lie is on. Like you're really stuck. You know how like you might have gone to bed and the tape is going and now you're, we make things up in our brain. I have at time I have to say to myself, okay, is this true? Am I making more of something?
Right.
And that usually means my big lie is in play.
Okay. Write it down. I got it.
Yeah. Okay.
You already know it. I think mine might be, I don't want to lose. What did you write down?
Oh, no. You have to take the test.
What's the test?
The test on Discover My Big Lie.
Oh, I can't take that test now. But I'm just saying right now, I think mine might be, I don't want to lose. And when I get really stressed. Yeah. So I don't know if you can tell that by, knowing me or whatever, but that's the one I think. So I'll take the test and then I'll see. But that's what I think mine might be. So how do I stay out of self-sabotaging and my big lie?
Well, that kind of goes to what we spoke of is there's proactive ways to stay out. And then when you're in the throes of it, ways to shift. So to stay out is actually in the book, we did a survey of over 1,000 people, just a blanket survey of what are the things you do that proactively allow you to decrease stress. Right. And so some people, and there were 29, there were a lot more than 29, but that was the cutoff of the majority, like where they fell. And some people were all about, working out or running. I always joke, like the only time I'm running is if you're chasing me. Like there's no running. And, there were gardening came up as a high one. So there's lots of different ways, music, dance.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And so obviously meditation, as I mentioned, yoga, working out was very high. Yeah. Some people, even there was a shout out to a lot of Peloton people were in that survey.
Sure. Yeah.
So finding those things that proactively allow us to say, I'm in my connected side. I'm going to start my day. And that's also why sleep is so important.
Yeah. And to do those, once you find those out, to really commit to making that part of your habitual process, because, it takes 30 days to have something really become a habit. And that's where I think some of us fall off. We start with good intent to decrease our disconnect in our emotional brain, that side of the brain, and then we get stressed and we get demands and we get whatever we get, and then we drop it. So to stop self-sabotage would be to stay in that proactive style of helping yourself reduce the stressors that they've taken your test and they know what it is now, so they're using that to help them reduce it. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yay.
Yeah. I think, what you said that is really compelling to me is the habits. You see, we have habits, and some habits serve us and some habits do not serve us. And True. So if we, even the habit of your bedtime routine, does it put you, decrease stress, or does it increase stress? And therefore, then you can't sleep. And when you don't have good sleep, you're going to wake up and all of a sudden it's easier for you to, lose sight of the facts and your best self. You're in the disconnected side. Sure. So it is all about habits, Pat. And that's what the survey of these 29 de-stressors, but you don't need to do 29. Pick 2, 3, and pick the things that, what is it that when I feel really good in the morning, I've done for myself?
Yeah. For me, it's reading and looking outside into my little garden and seeing my flowers, and I love that. And I have baby bunnies everywhere, and I love them. I name them, and that is a really lovely way for me to start my day.
Right.
But you're right. Avoid email like the plague, because something's going to pop up.
Just look at social media. I had to get off social media in the middle of 2020. I just couldn't take it anymore because there was just so much negativity constantly coming at me, with the exception of LinkedIn. But I just was like, this isn't serving me.
Right.
Like,
and therein lies the answer. This isn't serving me. And I do think everybody knows whether they're being helped or toxified, and it's that ability that you have to say, no, I'm going to detox. I'm out of this. Whatever it is, it may be yelling at your kids in the morning. It may be, take an extra half hour, go to sleep early and get up and have something more relaxed, those kind of things. So know what toxifies you. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's sum it up, Renie. Let's. You've been wonderful as always. I'll keep having you on and on and on. So, to just give a quick summary of all that we've done today. A lot. So, tell me in your words.
Well, just remember you have this emotional brain. It's different than your functioning brain, right? It's an emotional brain, and it really is command center of happiness and joy. Oh. And you decide which side you're going to live on. The connected side, where, solutions are, and positive energy, and healthy breathing, and all those kind of bearing positive emotions, or the disconnected side of your emotional brain, which is your fear, overwhelmment, anxiety, concerns about things that suck your energy. That's the energy suck. And your big lie lives over there. And there's 4 big lies. I must be right. I must never lose. Everyone must love me. And I must always feel comfortable. And it's not, the goal is to do things in your life that doesn't allow you to trigger your big lie. And that we all have moments. And I'll end with this story. The other day, Armand, my husband, and I, we were in the kitchen, and I'm like I'm a crazy person about chemicals. I'm like, no chemicals. So we, like in those filtered water pitchers, there's that you put in that thing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so you're supposed to soak it 3 times. Like that's the instructions. And of course, Armand soaked it barely, like he rinsed it 1 time. And I looked and I said, are you losing your mind? Like, this is like, we're going to toxicate ourselves, And by the way, I'm so crazy about water. We have a water filtration system, and I still have my filtered water pictures and things. So I might be a little bit like crazy about healthy water. Anyway, and he looked at me and he got really annoyed with me. Like I didn't go, oh, honey, I was in the disconnected side of my emotional brain going, right. What are you doing? Are you nuts? And I probably had a really nice tone going.
I'm sure
I'll own
did.
that.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he walked out of the room and he sat down. It was a nothing. It wasn't a big thing,
right.
But big, little things can become big things.
Oh, huge.
And so, and I looked over and I was, fixing it and doing the whole thing and, saying to myself, geez, I guess I have to do this, you can't read the damn instructions. Like that's like what my little people were saying in my emotional brain. And, another thing for my list, or, that kind of self-sabotage, to quote someone I know. Anyway, and all of a sudden I stopped myself and I'm like, okay, who do I want to be right now? And how important is this? Like, that was another question, and it shifted me. And I literally stopped what I was doing, and I was having one of my better Renie moments. So this is an example of a better Renie moment. We could be on here for 2 hours with all the not so good Renie moments. So
Gotcha.
In this moment, I went over and I just said, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't handle that very, politely. And I am sorry. I'm actually embarrassed. Please accept my apology. And he looked up and he said, thank you so much. And that was that.
It was done. Yeah.
It was done.
Yeah.
And I think so, but when we can see when we're in our baloney.
Sure.
Our BS. When we can be self-aware enough, then we won't sabotage.
Well, and to your
sorry.
Go ahead.
We go down that path, but we can stop and jump to the connected side. It's kind of like the fork in the road. And one side is the disconnected, you're going down the disconnected path, and the other is the connected path. Right. And you can stop and jump the path.
Yeah. Well, and what I love, there was a movie, gosh, and I, of course, forgotten the name of it. We're talking long time ago, that I love, with Jason Robards. And he was talking to his girlfriend, and she was upset about something. And he said, I just want to tell you how really sorry I am that you're having to experience that. And then he said, the best you can get out of life is one sincere apology. And I love that. It's like, if we come from our heart with one sincere apology, then it takes the energy from down. Yeah. Renie, let's talk to us one more time, because some of us are ADD, about the test. I want to know where's the test? Where can I get my free test?
dumpheadtrash.com, and you're going to click on the resources tab, and they're all free resources. And you just click on that, and you'll then see Discover Your Big Lie, and it'll take you less than 5 minutes, and you'll have an immediate email response.
Okay. Sounds great. I'm going to call you if I get one that I don't like. Renie, get me out of this.
You will. You will. I know that to be true. I love it.
You're great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. You can find more episodes and all of our other Hot Pie Media originals baked fresh daily at our home online at hotpiemedia.com, the Hot Pie Media YouTube channel, or wherever you listen to podcasts.